So metaphorically, let's look at this clay a little bit closer from a different perspective. The clay, again, just a reminder, representing my true nature, and the pot representing my assumed nature. In recent decades, there's been a lot of talk of a higher self. Okay, now if there's a higher self, then there must be a lower self. The higher self can be a conceptualized self, or it can be the self. If it's conceptualized, I've flooded it with attributes. It's got to be this, and it's going to be that, and it's going to be this. And you've loaded all your attributes in a spiritual way on that which has no attributes. It's beyond attributes. And just one thing I would like to say with regards to that, it looks like we're going off track, but I have to go there to come back here. So it's the higher self I want to come back to. That's a marker. But the lower self, I would just like to comment on that. As long as we are identified with the carnal self, with the mental self-image, so long we become the effect of duality. And it's not called a lower self for nothing. If there's effort that is evoked in me, it's interesting that it would be evoked in me, bearing in mind the backdrop here of no free will. If it's evoked in me, it would be tantamount to a call of sorts, which needs to be responded to or ignored. Now here comes the difficult part. Am I going to respond to it with a little finger? Or am I going to hold on with toes and fingers? And the metaphor Bhagavan gave for that was the baby monkey, symptomizing the early beginner, and the little kitten symptomizing the more informed soul. So when Bhagavan spoke of the baby monkey, if its mother, and the monkey is a symbol for the mind, because it's jumping from branch to branch, outwardly, but inwardly, from thought to thought. And while that stage is with me, that little baby has to hold on with all of its fingers and all of its toes onto the underside of its mother, who's jumping from one branch to the next, with a lot of meters below. So it's holding on. And in this case, that one is holding on to what's nearest and dearest to it, its mother. Then when confidence or trust or whatever your word is growing, then that baby monkey phase of having to hold on with everything has passed. But that's not weeks or months. Then there is more trust in what now? Mother's gone. There is trust. Some trust is developing. Some belief, some faith is developing. And when that has reached a point that's unique for all of us, there is the willingness to let go, let God. The willingness to be carried by destiny. If my heart's in the right place, destiny can do what it wants with me. My heart's in the right place. And that's that little kitten. His mother just picks it up by the neck, and it just doesn't feel the pain. Its mother, its trust, it's being carried. Then mother puts it somewhere. And it's a beautiful metaphor that Bhagavan used with seekers. So if the little monkey's got a place to hang on to and the kitten is being looked after, what about me? Okay, I can't do anything about it. I can merely predispose myself to a possibility. And one thing that is good in the beginning is the context in which I'm sitting still or meditating. And if that context is one where you feel is clean, okay, sanctified, spiritual, whatever your word is, that's one thing. If you are using every moment of your free time, sitting in your car waiting for your wife to return, you have a few moments. If you want to meditate then or meditate at any other time, most of you have been exposed to these two antennae and these two antennae. These are two psychic antennae. Now we're using words in a funny way. These are two psychic antennae. These two are below the diaphragm, representing the animal part, and these two above the diaphragm, the divine part. And if I want in meditation to be free of all interference, then you don't leave your circuits open and unattended. It's good to close them. Keep the viruses out. So how do you close the top two? Bringing your hands together, not opening them. If you're opening them, you're a wide open receiving station for whatever's in the room, or the context, or life. And that's why you'll find in all Eastern meditation, hands come together. If you are in a place that you feel is so uplifting, then you'd like some of that. It can be open. So the choice is yours. And we see it with the legs too. Why is all inner sanctity work done with crossed legs? You're closing that circuit and you're bringing the hands together. And how does body language play up in this? If you have some feel for body language and you're talking to somebody, old or new, and they're sitting in a very relaxed way and their circuits are open, they don't realize this. This is happening. But you observe that there is an openness here. And then you start talking. And if you go past a word they don't understand, or a misunderstood develops, or there's a disagreement, watch how long it takes before they say, thank you, that's enough. Or, thank you. And you nod at the right time. But you're not there. You're not available. You've closed your circuits. Have you ever seen that in somebody when you're talking too long? It's just, when there's a hint at this, then you must oops, just rewind it. But you can't rewind it. What's out is out. So it's just a reminder that these. Okay. So to come back to that, what was that again? I was putting a marker down.
The higher self.
the higher self. I would like to say it's fairly inaccessible while mind is rampant, while mind is ticking over. Mind that has come forward in evolution is a survival hangover mechanism, which warns me of what's coming, what's on the radar. It gears me to move towards or to move away from. And all that I'm moving towards or desiring or withdrawing or rejecting is loaded in my experiential field from the past. It has nothing to do with this moment. But the mind doesn't know about this moment. It knows about all of those moments and is there to protect you, the body-mind. Now, don't go there, it's telling you. You smell something that reminds you of that incident. And immediately something in you responds to that with a no, I'm not going there. I don't want, no, thank you. Suppress, push. All on automatic. Because mind is still there. So if we are saddled with the mind, which believes to be my best friend, and is what's going to keep me surviving, then let's use it as beneficially as we can. If we have to be with our thoughts, let's use them to our advantage. And the advantage would be, how can we use the mind to unseat the mind? But it's between you and me, not the mind. What can we do to unseat the mind? Let's play this game too. If I respond to every impulse, am I venerating the mind? How's it feeling whenever you respond to its prompt? Ek is bo baas. I'm above it all. But there might be something else that's wanting and waiting. But as long as mind is controlling the roost, it's the lower self or the carnal self that's holding sway. What to do? No, that's what must happen to the thinking mind. How to cultivate a mind that can unseat itself. Veneration and sanctity. Veneration and sanctity. If deep down it knows it's inadequate, it's lacking, it's wanting, it's needing, the byproducts of the lower mind or the lower self. It'll always be needing something to look forward to. It's called the red tractor syndrome or a carrot. The same thing. Red carrot, red tractor. Okay, these are new words. Okay, just to cover quickly, now I'm going to put a marker down here. What is this marker? Sanctity. This carrot thing and this red tractor. Okay, this goes right back to the beginning of the teaching. If you want your mule to keep walking and not to stop, then if you're sitting on the mule's back, you've got a long bamboo stick and lots of carrots on the end, and you'll be holding these just in front of the donkey, and he will walk towards these carrots. And he will keep walking towards these carrots. And if you want the donkey to go right, you hold the stick a little bit, the carrots must be on the right. So the donkey needs a carrot. and the little boy needs a red tractor. So the story of the red tractor goes back to when the night before Christmas, the parents are making a wish list for the Father Christmas that's coming. And Johnny says, I want a red tractor. It's quite a bit of shopping to do today. So if he says a red tractor, then Father Christmas, assuming the parents can, will provide what's going to make him happy. Now here's the joke. Johnny knows that the red tractor will make him happy. The parents know it. And they're only too happy to go and buy this red tractor because they're thinking maybe once he's got this blessed tractor in his bedroom, he can leave us in peace. He can be with his happiness. So whatever the motive of the parent is, they get this red tractor. And here is where the problem is. As Father Christmas knocks on the door, there's a whoop from Johnny as he runs towards the front door. What's he wanting, Father Christmas or the tractor? Am I wanting the giver of the gifts or am I wanting the gift from the giver? So subtly this conditioning starts. Because I see behind this jovial, loving eyes, I don't see that far. I just see this big golden packet. It's about the size of a tractor. So once that tractor is given, he races to his bedroom. Doesn't even say thank you. And does he quietly take the pieces of... No, he tears the paper off. So anxious to get what the heart is desiring, or the head. And then, does Mom have her peace? Yes. Because he's so enamored with this that all of the attention is now on this and not on trying to get recognized. Two hours pass, and it's just so good to be at home. After 3 hours, it's not vroom, vroom, vroom anymore. It's vroom, vroom, vroom. What happened to the vroom, vroom? That's the law of diminishing returns. When I'm exposed to something I like for too long, I take it for granted. No? So it plateaus. It was just so wonderful getting better. I mean, what this tractor... And then it starts plateauing just before it goes downhill. Now, 5 hours later, the parents have locked the door, so he can have unbridled happiness. So after 3-4 hours, the first thought of non-tractor comes. Hamburger in that house. It's just a thought, nothing much. Went out again. 5 minutes later, that thought comes again. It comes more and more frequently. Until what is on center court is not the tractor anymore. I'm hungry. I want a hamburger. So now he calls, there's no answer. His mom's enjoying her holiday outside on the patio. And while he's running around trying to open the window and the door, they're all locked. And he stumbles across the tractor and cuts his shin open, and there's blood everywhere. How does he feel about the red tractor? Could he pick it up and throw it against the wall? The thing that was bringing me joy in one context is always going to have a change. The very thing. So that's a good metaphor in life. And it is just when, that's where that phrase came from. Just when you think everything is fine, life happens. The other side comes up. So what to do about changing fortunes if I have no inner hold? I'm just subject to them. They move me. and I have to hold on tightly. So what is it that is needed? And if it's not there at the moment, how does it need to be cultivated as that inner hold? So that when the storm breaks, there is somewhere to hold on to and not to be washed this way or that way. And that is sanctity in, now here the word, so many words you could use. You can call it the supreme being, a divine being. You can call it the first cause. You can call it cosmic intelligence, which we've been speaking of. If everything is so intelligently put together, what is that which is putting it all together so perfectly every time? Now we're moving into the domain of a different self, a higher self that wants to have more of that, but it has no sanctity for it. It has no appreciation for it. It has no love for it. Does it want to move towards it? And that's very often the case with God today. There's no sanctity. It's very unmodern to think and talk of. I am the self, we are all one, we are perfect. Who needs some wrathful, vengeful father? Yeah, okay, there's that mentality that exists as well, unfortunately. But there's no sanctity. Are you attracted to something? Is the soul attracted to something that's got no sanctity? The head might be. I don't know about the heart. What about if there was a real love for God? That'd be different. Look at when he heard that his God was in the form of a mountain, he was on fire for God, for Shiva. On fire for Shiva. Nothing mattered in his life. And you read his autobiography, how he ended up at Arunachala, shows you the love and the sanctity he had for God. Then you look at that's the source of, one of the main contributors of traditional Advaita, but then even the forefather of Neo-Advaita, Papaji, on fire for God, Krishna. Christ was on fire for his God. And if you look at any of these people, it's the same. So if there's no sanctity for what is true, what is existent, and what is timeless, how can I be drawn to that or attracted to that or move to that? Or do I live my day from one distraction to another, having fun, having enjoyment? In other words, a series of distractions from the truth of why I'm here. So if there is no sanctity for God, because it's too old-fashioned now to talk of God, then we dress it with cosmic intelligence, or we start talking about things intelligently put together. Now that I can accept, but don't come here with that word. So sometimes you have to come in the back door to reach what needs sanctity, and that is the one. I think it might have been Francis of Assisi that made unwittingly a reference to Saguna Brahman when he said, I just remember a few words. When he addressed brother, sun, sister, moon, it was indicating his love or connection for everything that is manifest, bearing in mind it's manifested from the same that he venerates. Whether it's come as a moon or a sun or his higher self, it's come from an aspect of the truth. So these two words that indicate the source of all existence is Brahman, and Brahman has got two sides, so to speak. There's Saguna Brahman and Nirguna Brahman. And guna is a Sanskrit word for a predisposition, natural predisposition towards something. Saguna Brahman is that aspect, or is that, yeah, you can say that aspect of the one which has got all the attributes of nature. So when I stand in front of nature and I'm in awe, I'm venerating in Hindu Vedic language, I'm addressing God who has appeared to me as Saguna Brahman, Brahman with attributes. Look at these amazing, who, what? Awe and reverence. When you don't know, you can't believe it, it's just so amazing. You're standing in front of God in the Hindu Vedic way of seeing things, venerating it as the manifested aspect of the one. Because man didn't manifest anything here, as you know. He planted it, but he didn't manifest it. What is the wonder behind the manifestation? I can look at it, and as best I can, don't think, just wonder. Wonder is a very open book, a very open slate. And it brings you in touch with everything that's not carnal. When you're in wonder, when you're in awe, you are touched by something that's not man-made. And that would be to cultivate an awareness of the truth of the universe, which in Sanskrit is called Sat, S-A-T. Sat is the truth. It's what exists. It's eternal. It doesn't change. It's I. But not the I that I know yet. I've had maybe glimpses of it, but I'm still running under, most of the time, under an enlightened surface I. I won't say an enlightened I, but an enlightened surface I. Starting to see there's a little bit more here than I had ever dreamt of. It is an enormous, enormous, enormous mystery that I am. But if I'm living under the dictates of a mental concept of who I am, I see my life as very mundane. Tick off things to do, and it's just never ending, and you go from the next thing to the next thing and the next thing and the next thing. Okay, you can get away from that. You can say, I'm retreating from the world. But you take that part of your mind with you, unfortunately. So where you retreat to, the same situation, just delayed a bit. Different geographical coordinates, same problem. So anybody would like to say anything, random or on this topic? These words are just meant to open up some thought corridor so that there can be an exchange. In the waking dream, we draw a lot of satisfaction from holding spiritual thoughts. It's certainly better than holding other kinds of thoughts, for sure. But is it the way? What's holding the thought? What's holding that thought in place? It's the mind. You're strengthening the mind. So yes, that works in the waking dream.
So, Patrick, coming back to the mind, what you were saying, about directing the mind or not following every impulse, those are all little things to do, but ultimately, he's still working with the mind. So the best is to just be in stillness. Or
If the mind will let you, yes. Otherwise, if the mind's not letting you, then you need to somehow train the mind. And there is an aspect of training the mind, which is using the mind to unseat itself. If you tell the mind it's very good to be with one thing at a time, in other words, bringing closure to something, then maybe something more than mind is hearing this. And then if it is an experience of mine, which I can do any day of my life, I choose this experiment to prove it's true. You can set aside a Sunday or a day when you know there's no distractions at home. And from the time you wake up, the first thought that comes to your mind, I haven't written to my father. You've started that cycle of action. If you don't complete it, you're going to be hung in space and time on an incomplete cycle. Now you say, oh, well, I think I'm first going to have a cup, halfway to the kitchen, the fuse goes. You can't finish that. So if you have, you get out of bed the wrong side, there's that expression in English, you got out of bed the wrong side. What they should say is the first thing that happened to me after I got out of bed was an incomplete cycle. And when you've got one incomplete cycle, is it easier to complete the next one or more difficult? If some of your attention is already stuck, it makes it very much easier to have the next one incomplete, etc., etc. Until how much of your attention is left in present time? 10%? Have you ever got to the point when you want to hit your face? Hey, what's going on? You should know better. Why didn't you think of? Come on, pull your bum together, as Appa used to say. So we're losing the ability to be conscious because we're not listening to the higher mind. Let's call it the higher mind. The higher mind says, be with one thing. Okay? Mind is directing this body to be with one thing. And if the body cooperates, the mind is immensely pleased. I feel good. And I know that I am more conscious after I've completed that cycle. And the more at home I feel within myself, unknown to mind, I have less and less need for the mind if I'm feeling collected and okay. So isn't that a type of example of using the mind to unseat itself? It's telling you to be with that, do that. Okay, well, let's be with that. But then it also says, hey, but there's somebody's calling you here, that part of my I have to stay with one thing. And then if that is done, it's not that is complete, it's how you completed it. You can do something like this to complete it, or you can do something like this mindfully to complete it. When it's completed mindfully, you're free of that now. It's gone. No more attention will be stuck on it. And then you look up and you see, okay, that's got to be done. You just don't argue it and don't ever prioritize unless you have to. Because what happens when you prioritize? What happens to mind when you try and prioritize? You got these different terminals, different things to do, say, whatever. And if you prioritize, isn't the mind jumping there, looking at that? Oh, how urgent is that? And then jumping to that one, oh, I still need to do that. You're opening up little cycles here. You started with that one. You went to this one. What is involved there? Oh, that. You get some of your attention stuck there. Oh, I must consider this. I think you know what I'm talking about. And after a while, your mind's thick. You can't even remember what you're doing. Be with one thing. And Christ said, let your eye be single, and your body will be filled with light. And there the mind can actually be the unwitting victim of itself. I'm going to be one-pointed, but driving this is a bit of sanctity. I'm beginning to believe there is an incredible intelligence behind everything, including me, which knows me better than myself, and therefore doesn't give me free will. It gives the appearance of free will to keep me encouraged. So just to remind you what Bhagavan said on free will, when somebody said, is there any free will? And he said, no. And the devotee said, yeah, I understand that. Us, I'm putting my words in now, us Hindu devotees who believe in astrology and reincarnation believe that the major things in your life are governed by destiny. Marriage, job, career, children, bada bada. But what about moving this thing from there to there? You won't find that in a Vedic astrology chart, because it's trivial. But Bhagavan said, yes, even that. Who's moving it? Who's going to respond? The me that I think I am is going to respond. I moved it. But I, the one I think I am, is the problem. And the only problem. The one I take myself to be. That is the one that changes. That is the one that feels okay on Wednesday at 11 o'clock. And after receiving that news, an hour later feels that way. Something's changing. Anything that changes can't be sat, S-A-T, timeless, true, all-pervasive, omniscience, omnipotence, omnipresence. If I don't have sanctity for something, I don't have any sanctity for my higher self, which is that. But I can't be told that. I shouldn't even have said that, because then straight away I wanted to say what the temptation is to imagine that I am that. It's nice to imagine that I am that, but then to take a reality check now and again, I am not yet that, but that is the goal of my efforts. in life. What I have appreciation for, let's leave the word sanctified, sanctity out. What I appreciate, what I enjoy, what I like, I don't have trouble bringing that to mind. I don't have trouble going to get that, fetch that, do that. But then I must just be aware that it's also my needs that need to be addressed, not only my wants. Sometimes it's good not to fulfill a desire that the mind wants. Sometimes it's necessary to do something that the mind doesn't want to do, get it used to, not ruling the show. But I'm actually going to override you. I'm actually going to do what I don't necessarily enjoy, and I'm not going to do something that I do necessarily enjoy. So there. In other words, do what's pragmatic for me here, regardless of anything else. If it's sweet or it's sour, it's in my face. And not just to pick all the little sweet spots of life and hope that I'll avoid all the rest. I have to. And I mentioned on a couple of occasions, one of my first impressions of Appa was him standing knee-deep in sewer, cleaning a sewer bin, cleaning an underground sewer. There were many volunteers, but he said you followed him by his example, not by what he said. And he was setting an example. This is life. This came to me this morning, sewer. So I'm doing sewer. Didn't come to you. You were in that chalet. I think it's a time. What time is this? 10:45. All right. So if there's anything anybody would like to say.
It just brings to mind, and I can't think of his name, but that gentleman that wrote that song, I think he wrote that song, All Is Well.
All is well with my soul.
And he had all that tragedy happen to him.
Mm.
And it's to get, that is what you've been talking about. That's
very well put together, because that sums it up quite well. So just let's say for those who might not have been there, I think his name was Caddy, who wanted to migrate, I can't quite remember where, it could have been the east, and went across by sea. And when he found it suitable to call for his wife and daughters to join him on another ship, they came, and that ship, with his wife and 3 daughters on, met a tragic accident. I think it might have been an iceberg. And he lost his wife and all his children. No, he lost, the wife came with him, and 3 children were coming across alone, and they all died. And you can imagine losing 1 child, but losing 3. And he was a man, and so was she, of deep faith. This was really sanctity that held them together, sanctity and sanity. And it spurred him on to do good to as many people as he could in his life in India or wherever it was. And there he felt the sanctity had taken, the sanctity will give back. What God has, Job comes to mind, what God has taken away from me, God will return to me. What's not mine will not come back, what is mine will come back. But to think of composing that song with those lyrics in that pain is indicating that he had complete sanctity or trust in the one. And you feel that in the song. Yeah, what?
Yeah, no, I was just going to say, this is just I think, this is my opinion, I think many people, when they set out on the path, they think now they're on the path, only all's going to be well. Like, and when all these bad things happen, that's when they lose because they think, why?
Mm.
And this is this neutrality that you spoke about, because it's duality. So it's always going to come. It's not just, it's too. And I think in my earlier days, I also felt like that. Why? Why? I'm on.
Mm.
That is to develop that neutrality. But,
Whether it's sweet or sour,
mm,
it's come from the one hand.
mm,
And the one hand, my basic belief is that it's a benign mystery, not a malevolent mystery.
mm,
And if it's a benign mystery
yeah, yeah.
that can take care of every molecule, how much more so can it take care of me? And with that sanctity, then those words flow in such a different way. In fact, we've got that. We've got that somewhere. We can even play it. Yeah, let's do that before tea. If this, and what does make that nice is it's a true story, and it's about somebody who really had faith